And I think this aspect of racism, we are bound to get it wrong as white people. I am bound to get it wrong. I know that. There'll be people listening to this probably who think, oh my goodness, she smacks of white privilege, But at least I'm trying. That's the thing. I'm trying. I'm open to having conversations, and I'm open to people saying to me, well, Rachel, that wasn't really what you should have said. And I go, okay, well, I'll learn, because life's about learning, isn't it?
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview thoughtful, inspiring, and influential guests who are making their mark on the world and contributing to the common good. Making your mark, big or small, is creating a legacy, and it's one of the proven ways we can age with vibrance and energy. And Zestful Aging Podcast is my legacy. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager. Our lovely music is courtesy of Judy Banker, who is a previous guest on Zestful Aging. Find out more about her on judybanker.com. And to find out more about this podcast, my web courses, and other offerings, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. I know that everyone is feeling really stressed and anxious right now. We're all unsettled and feel out of control. So I created a free download for you for maintaining mental health based on my 30 years as a psychotherapist. Just go to zestfulaging.com and it is all yours. Well, I've got my little loyal Jack Russell Sparky right by my side. He's anticipating his walk. So let's begin. We have a fantastic interview for you today, something I think that's very thought-provoking and important. Rachel Lancaster is the founder of Magnificent Midlife, and she wants to change the world for women in midlife and beyond in the direction of how the world views us and how we view ourselves. She is passionate about challenging outdated ideas about menopause and aging. And because she's so keen about ending prejudice today, we're going to address racism. And we are aware that we are two privileged white women attempting to understand an experience that we know we can never really, truly appreciate. But we're hoping our efforts may help others to confront some of these really important issues. Welcome to the program, Rachel.
Thank you, Nicole. It's absolutely wonderful to be here.
I am thrilled to have you. And we're going to talk about something really difficult today. Normally we talk about different aspects of aging. I know you're an expert in menopause with your own show. You talk about a lot of different elements of aging. But today we're going to dip our toe into something that's really, really painful and complex, particularly for two white women podcasters.
Yeah, it is. I feel rather awkward even sort of talking to you and coming on air to talk about this as a very privileged white woman. But like you, I just hope that, by opening up these conversations, that maybe we can extend those conversations to lots more people, because I really hope, with everything that's been going on with the Black Lives Matter movement recently, that we have reached a point of real change. That is my hope. That is what I'm feeling. I hope really.
Many people are that too, like finally something looks like it's shifting. And we are really confronted head on with the reality of systemic racism. And Rachel, I know that you have said that you have experienced your own awakening in the last year regarding race and racism. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I really have. I mean, I think that the first thing that struck me was when the white woman called the cops on the black man in Central Park. And that white woman was somebody, not that dissimilar to me. And I had been in the Ramble in Central Park. I used to live in New York, and I saw this woman, I saw her doing it. And for the first time, I think white people or people like me, I could see what was happening. There was no pretense. She was absolutely calling on her white privilege and weaponizing her whiteness to attack this black man. And then that was kind of like the catalyst for me beginning to wake up. And then with the murder of George Floyd and everything just kicking off, there was nowhere to hide anymore. We couldn't say, well, this isn't our problem. This is nothing to do with us. And it really is. And I've had my eyes open because I think often the thinking around racism, it really focuses on the interpersonal element of racism. And therefore, if we are surrounded by white people and if we don't say something mean to a person of color, we assume we're not racist. Mm-hmm. But what these events have shown me over the last few months is that we are racist when we are silent. Mm-hmm. That, by being apathetic, by thinking it doesn't involve us, by not engaging with this issue, we are part of the problem. And if we are really nice people, we're almost even more of the problem, because, the outright racists are kind of easy to identify and to deal with, but the nice people who don't do anything, we are just as much part of the problem.
I see, complicit
as anybody else.
In just letting the system maintain its status quo, which, as we know, is built on white supremacy.
Absolutely. And I had never thought about the term white privilege. It hadn't occurred to me. If I may, I'd like to read something from a book I've been reading. I've been reading so many books and listening to podcasts. I've interviewed a couple of wonderful black women on my podcast who've talked to me about this issue. But one is a book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo-Lodge. And it's very interesting because I think there's a tendency amongst Brits to think this is an American issue. Mm-hmm. Well, it ain't an American issue. This is a worldwide issue. And guess who started slavery? The British. So, we need to fess up here and, take our share of the blame. And we live with the legacy of that in the UK right now. So Rennie Edo-Lodge has written this really great book about the British experience of race and racism. And this quote that I'm going to read, if I may, about white privilege really just sort of struck it home to me. So white privilege is an absence of the consequences of racism, an absence of structural discrimination, an absence of your race being viewed as a problem first and foremost. So it's not something that happens to us, but it's the lack of things happening that gives us that white privilege. And then she goes on to say, she says, when I talk about white privilege, I don't mean that white people have it easy, that they've never struggled, or that they've never lived in poverty. But white privilege is the fact that if you're white, your race will almost always, certainly, positively impact your life's trajectory in some way, and you probably won't even notice it. So I've been reading things like this, and suddenly it's like, oh, I get it now. Okay, I get it.
There's something it's so baked into our culture, we don't see it anymore. And one of the examples I've heard, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of learning about this, one of the examples that I've heard is like, how often do we go into a grocery store and just assume that most of the people are going to be of our race?
Yes.
I mean, that's just a given, of course. Why would it be any different? That is not the experience of African Americans in our community, that they are always an outlier. And what it must be like to live your life always having to put walls up or feel in some kind of protective mode. And as a psychotherapist, I wonder, what does that do to your psychology to have to always be vigilant because you are not part of sort of the acceptable group, for lack of a better word?
Well, in so many, places in the world, including where you are and where I am, white is the default. Dolls are generally white. For example, but I did an analysis actually of British women's magazines for older women. So there's two. There's Woman and Home and Good Housekeeping over here that are sort of pretty high end. And I subscribe to an app which allows you to see all of the covers in one place. And for the last 2 years, both of these magazines, so that's 24 issues, each one had not a single person of colour.
Wow.
And the other had an Indian lady who was British born, who was in that lighting almost as pale as a white person. And then if you go back a little bit further, they'd managed to get Michelle Obama onto the cover of the magazine.
They managed.
But I was thinking, how would you feel if...
The most popular woman in the world. That wasn't a real stretch for them.
It really wasn't, was it? But, just imagine, yes, you're going into a shop and you're looking at the magazines and you never see somebody who looks like you. And this is where I'm going to tell you the little personal thing that in terms of my own personal revelation, I suppose, this year and discussions I'm having with my son. My son is 22. He's actually in New York at the moment and I'm here in London. Now, my son is half Chinese, so I am the mother of a mixed race child. And I speak Chinese, so I've always pushed the Chinese culture and he's always had, elements of both sides of his culture. And I've only ever seen it as something positive. But what I found really interesting in the conversations we've been having since this is that he's talked about how, well, internally he can see that he is both white and Chinese, but externally he's neither one nor the other. And he's talked about how his experience of life growing up was very different as a person of colour, even in Hackney, which is one of the most diverse boroughs in London, which is where he went to school. And I never thought about that. And reading that book by Reni Eddo-Lodge, there's a whole chapter in that book which talks about the white mothers of mixed race children. And it was really hard for me to read because I could see myself in there, that I had not made allowances. It had not occurred to me to be anything other than positive, nor to make allowances for the experience of life that he had as a half Chinese young man.
And so what would those have been, Rachel? What would, now knowing what you know, after reading, after world events, after just being so thoughtful, what would you have done differently?
I would have talked about race. I would have been aware, and I would have probably asked him more about his racial experience, whether he was encountering any difficulties, because I just assumed he didn't. It was a very diverse school, very mixed, but there was nobody that exactly fitted his ethnic background there. Nobody. So he was one of a kind. Mm-hmm. And as a white woman, I have never experienced that. I've lived in China. I might have been the only person in a tube carriage who was white, very, very occasionally. So I have experienced that, many years ago. But to be experiencing it now is quite difficult. The funniest thing is now, actually, this is just a little offshoot. He's now living in Brooklyn, and he lives in a very Hispanic area. And he can pass for being Brazilian or any kind of South American. So suddenly he's living in a place where people look like him.
Although they are not.
They're not.
It's an illusion.
It is.
Oh, my goodness.
So he feels very at home there. It's really interesting.
Does he speak Spanish?
He does, yeah. So.
Oh, perfect. Oh, my goodness. That's a whole new, it's a whole new way, to think about, well, I can pass. He's passing, but for something that, oh, my goodness.
And he's always, it's funny actually, there's another little tangent. He's always had fun playing that, what's my ethnicity game? Because people usually can't get it. They just can't work it out.
Oh my goodness. Hello, Zesties. I want to tell you about one of my all-time favorite exercise and stress reduction tools, which I am really relying on during this quarantine. But I've sung its praises for years. The benefits are seemingly endless. It's great for toning and strengthening muscles. It improves your lymph system, your metabolism. It helps with joint pain and balance. And it's even used by NASA astronauts because it's such an efficient way to exercise. And if you're older or you're worried about your balance, you can order a stabilizer bar to hang on to. I'm talking about my Needak Rebounder mini trampoline. I put on my music and I have my own dance party. Because for me, exercise needs to be fun and invigorating. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. Now is not the time for the philosophy of no pain, no gain, because we're in enough pain. This is a way to feel good and energized and have fun. It really does help mood as well. And I like that Needak is made in the USA and it is really solid. I've had mine for 15 years and it's still in great shape. The Needak Rebounder will help us get through this quarantine in better shape mentally and physically. And there's also a model that folds up if space is an issue. One of my clients puts it on her driveway and uses it while she's watching her kids during the quarantine. Anyway, I can't recommend Needak Rebounders enough. They are a worthwhile investment in your health and overall well-being, especially now. If you are interested in a mini trampoline, please don't buy a cheap one. Those can be actually dangerous, and it is really worth investing in a good quality one. And right now, if you use the coupon code just for Zestful Aging listeners, the code is Zestful. They are going to include a free cover for you. So go to Needak.com. It's NEEDAK.com. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at zestfulaging.com. I really am their biggest fan. So what has it been like for you, this sort of coming of, I guess, conscience, this experiencing of awakening? You're also, you said, learning new terminology.
Oh my goodness, so much. Yes. I mean, there's another book that I think actually every white person should read. It's Me and White Supremacy. And when I say white people, I think it's white, and this book talks about white passing people, because when we talked about, that racism is everywhere in the world earlier on, it is because we all like to other somebody. Every culture has a culture that they look down on. And it may not be anti-black racism, but, think about in India, particularly where, whitening creams are so popular because whiter skin is thought of as better. Even in places like the Philippines and Southeast Asia, that's the case. The darker you are, the less popular you are. In China, it's the same.
And even in African American culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that, in fact, is talked about as the internalized racism, where even when people of colour have their own racism against people who are slightly different to them or a different shade, Anyway, so the terminology I've been looking at, that's one, the internalized racism, but white fragility has been really interesting. I didn't know about this, and there's another wonderful book just called White Fragility. But this is when white people get very, very defensive about race. And I think perhaps my background and experience of having had a mixed race child means I'm not at all frightened to talk about race, but a lot of people are. And because of this issue of, if they're not overtly doing things that appear to be racist, then for anybody to suggest they are racist really hurts. But I think now the time has come where we just have to accept that, we have to kind of accept it and move on if we're going to try and change the situation. Another thing is tone policing, which I've also found really fascinating. So tone policing is when white people in particular have a real difficulty with hearing the message from black people because of the way it is presented. And, I'm like this. I'm very sensitive. I don't like it if people shout at me or are aggressive to me. And so I've been really thinking about this whole tone policing because I realize, that I have to get better at listening to a message, even if I don't like the way it sounds, because it's not my place to be policing somebody else's tone. Because guess what? If I'm in America, I don't have 400 years worth of oppression behind me.
And we have the privilege of saying, let's make it a lovely tone. And let's. But when you have been oppressed for 400 years, you've tried, and the history is we've tried everything, and you're not hearing. If we take a knee, you don't like it. If we, do this, you don't like it. If we do it in graffiti, there's nothing left. You're not hearing.
I heard one impassioned black woman describe the rioting as grieving. And when I heard that, I thought, my goodness me, yes, I can see that, And then Trevor Noah has talked about how the social contract has been broken. So don't expect us not to run crazy because the social contract is not there anymore.
I saw that particular episode and then I saw how many times it was shared, and I thought he did such a good job at really getting to the heart of this, like, what choices? There's no choices.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
So that's been very powerful as well, and sort of acknowledging that I just have to take it in the way it is presented and not try and make it nice and palatable for my gentle little white ears.
So here's another tough question, and just really wondering, and I struggle with this, but when you're out and about, and probably not as much as usual because of COVID, when you are, let's just make up an example, you're in the store, in the food market, in the grocery store, and you have someone who's African American behind you, in front of you, have some kind of encounter with someone you don't know who's African American. How do you relate to this person, given the fact that you are really committing yourself to understanding their history and their oppression?
That's a really interesting question, because I don't find it easy to talk to anybody that I don't know. I could talk to you on a podcast, but actually talking to somebody, having a conversation with them in the street, that I don't know is difficult. But I do go out of my way to acknowledge, particularly my post people, the people who come and pick up my garbage. I try and make an effort to always, talk to them, say hello, not engage them in conversation because they're busy, but it was interesting because one of the ladies that I had on my podcast, Kim McCormick, who has the most amazing way of getting through white defensiveness. She talked about, if everybody in your social group looks like you, make an effort to reach out to people who don't. And she had a wonderful phrase, and I am trying to learn from this, but it doesn't come easily for me as an introvert. But she said, if you want to break the ice, you've got to be willing to be the icebreaker. So thank you for that reminder, Nicole, that I need to make more of an effort.
But I have a self-consciousness about it because I've read people going up to people of color and saying things like, I want you to know I see you. I see you. I value you, but I am so worried that will come off as sort of condescending or like, oh, really? Do you see me? Do you see me, white lady, with, your privilege?
I think we need to be really, really careful about that, actually. There's another book that I'm reading at the moment called I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. And she talks about her life as a black woman at school, at college, professionally. She works in Christian organizations, and the amount of racism she's encountered is quite shocking to read about. But she talked about one day at work where she'd been on a bus, then she'd been on a boat, and she'd felt really sick on the boat, then gone to a restaurant, and one of her colleagues had come over and had said, "Are you all right?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And the colleague said, "Yes, I appreciate, that you're the only person of colour here. I just wanted to make sure you were all right." And Austin said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And Austin was thinking, well, I was the only black person on the bus. I was the only black person on the boat. You've only just noticed that I'm the only black person in the restaurant.
So I think come off as really, I don't know what's even the word.
Well, there's another term, isn't there? There's white centering.
Ah.
Where we make it about ourselves. We make it so that, we're trying to feel good.
Ah, okay.
And then we make it about us again. We make it about us feeling good, which goes back to the whole white fragility that we get upset, and then, other people are having to sort of worry about our upset. Well, no.
So it's like you're demonstrating, look, I'm not racist and I'm going to prove it to you.
Yeah.
I see. And talking about this, it's like not all black people have the same feelings and views and needs and ideas. So for one person, they may appreciate an overture, and another black person might say, "What are you doing? This is so awkward and so, inappropriate."
I think it comes down to, if you have a relationship with somebody, then by all means have those kind of conversations, but not randomly in the supermarket. Or at least, make the attempt to reach out first rather than going straight in with racism, because I just, that just, to me, it just feels false. And it feels like there's other words like tokenism, white saviorism, optical allyship, all these things I've learned from this book.
Oh my goodness. It's interesting. I have a client, she's a white woman, privileged white woman, and she is just tortured about what can I do, and she spends time on Instagram where there's a lot of judgment about, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, don't do this, you should do, why aren't you doing this? And she's just sort of paralyzed about how can I help? What can I do that's meaningful? Now there's a lot of pieces of this, but do you have any ideas about where to start?
I would really start with that book, Me and White Supremacy.
Okay.
That started as an Instagram challenge. It was a 28-day challenge. And so it's in 4 weeks. And each day you have a topic to think about, and you're encouraged to journal on it and to really do the work and really excavate your internal racism. And it's very, very powerful. I've been really impressed with this book, actually. It's completely accessible. It's not sort of couched in difficult language or, and it's not blaming, because ultimately she's not looking for us all to feel guilty, because guess what? If we feel guilty, what are we doing? We're making it all about us again. We're centering again, aren't we? So the point is, I think, start with that book, read it. At the end, it talks about what are your commitments going to be? What can you do? And then there's all sorts of resources. Actually, I've created a document which has got all sorts of Black Lives Matter resources in it, which we can make available in the show notes. I've written loads of films you can watch, things you can do, people you can follow, organizations you can support financially. So lots of ideas. But I would start with that book and really explore all the different facets to it, because as I've said, it's just, there is so much. And Kim McCormick on my podcast, again, lovely lady, she said, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon, and this is a lifetime of unlearning that we have to do.
A lifetime, indeed. I mean, look, there was this in Egypt. I mean, it goes a long way back. And as you said, every culture has somebody in their culture that is victimized, that is oppressed. And there's some biologists that talk about that there's a biological need to separate yourself and group yourself and determine who's in and who's out, and that there's some seeds in our human brains that are about who am I like and who's safe, who do I stick with. I don't know enough about that to understand it fully, but I thought that was a challenge as well. Very, very interesting, different kind of look at, how humans and our brains operate.
Yeah, that's fascinating. There's also the thinking, isn't it, that eventually we'll all be mixed race. There won't be any black and white or brown. We'll all just be brown.
And then, do you know much about this idea that we're all from Africa?
I hope so.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense to me.
Right. I mean that we're all linked back to the original mankind. And that came out of Africa. So that we're all, if you go back far enough, we're all from the same tribe, so to speak.
It's just so complicated, isn't it? But I really do think there's another phrase I picked up. It's just, we can't just chop at the branches. We need to chop at the root. And we need to do this work to unpick this at the very deep level, and to get rid of the institutionalized racism, which, I watched the documentary The 13th about institutionalized racism in the States, and it was just eye-opening to me that there were all these structures in place to stop black people being able to live in the same way that white people do. And even now, it's more difficult for black people to vote than it is for white people to vote. And therefore, guess what happens? They don't get their vote. They're not represented, and things don't change.
Do you have a sense of how Brits see this? I mean, do you think most Brits look at this as, well, there's the United States being, archaic again and uncivilized? Or do you think most Brits have a sense that this is a worldwide problem?
That's an interesting question. I think we're very good at seeing worldwide problems, but assuming it doesn't pertain to us. That's my thinking about the British. It's everybody else is bad, but we're superior. It's a bit like COVID now. The rest of the world is wearing face masks, but oh no, we can't possibly wear face masks. Oh, that would be absolutely terrible.
I see.
So we always, we're individualistic, aren't we? Rather than thinking about the whole, we're much more interested in me, the individual. So I think
is that relates to Brexit as well?
Oh yeah.
In what ways? In what ways?
Well, we think we're better than everybody else, which I can't stand. It just drives me nuts. That's another. Don't get me on that soapbox. I'll be here all day. But oh God, yeah, I don't know. It just is very, very challenging. But I think racism in the UK is more insidious. It's hidden, but that doesn't mean it's not there. It's not so in your face. It's not blatant in Parliament as it is now blatant in the US government policy, it seems to me.
And we can just say Trump. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is super scary. Well, we're trying. We are trying hard. We are looking up to Trump collectively as a nation, which is deeply embarrassing too. But there you go.
Oh, my goodness. But, I'm wondering, you're really taking this seriously. You're embracing this. You're learning. Is there a point where you have to sort of take a rest? So you like go out in your garden or take a walk or something to kind of get a break from some of the heaviness of this 400-year legacy?
Hey, I'm white. It would be a lot worse for me if I was black. I think if they can cope with it, I can cope with it. I'm just learning to cope with it now. I mean, I'm pretty good at doing that anyway, because I'm always sort of thinking about, difficult issues and working on my business. So I'm quite good at stepping out when I need to, I think, although my nearest and dearest perhaps wouldn't agree with me on that one. Yeah, but it is very heavy. But I think, as I said earlier, we don't want to get wrapped up in guilt because, I think we need to feel it, we need to understand it, but then we need to find ways to move forward and be proactive and keep this initiative going. And I really do believe that older people and women in particular can have a huge role to play in changing the world. I always say, as part of my community and everything that I do, that midlife and beyond women, we have immense authority if we just believe it. We have wisdom, we have experience. And if we choose to step forward instead of stepping back, and many women get to midlife and it's like, oh, well, life's okay, I'll just carry on as I am. Or they decide that they need to leave a legacy, they want to leave a legacy and they want to do something. And if anybody out there is feeling that, well, here is purpose on a plate.
Aha.
You combine this with the environmental activism that has, come so much to the fore with COVID, that now we don't have all the air pollution that we had 4 months ago because there's nobody flying around and transport is more restricted. But actually thinking about, so what kind of new normal do we want? Because I certainly do not want to go back to the old normal, whether that be from an environment standpoint or a racism standpoint or just a sustainable economy standpoint. I'm not interested in the old way of doing things.
So you see this as an opportunity to reset.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I always talk about menopause as being an opportunity to reset. And that it is a time in life where we start to think about, what we want to leave behind and what we want to take forward and who are we now. And as we go through menopause, we do become different because our hormonal profile is different. We're different. And we can do more, I believe, the older we get, not less. So I think we can really take a stand on this, whether it's, becoming a keyboard warrior or just ranting to your great Aunt Marge, I don't know what it is, but actually stepping forward and doing the work, learning stuff, finding out, and then having difficult conversations with people and trying to push forward change rather than just accepting that life has to be the way it is because it's always been that way. That's not the case. Either for us personally or for the world.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Margaret Mead quote about nothing compares to the zest of a postmenopausal woman.
No, but I love that. How have I not heard that one?
I don't know. You're the
my
queen of postmenopausal zest.
I've missed that one, haven't I? It's wonderful. Absolutely.
This expression, purpose on a plate, that has got to be the title because that's brilliant. Brilliant.
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean, anybody wanting to really make a difference in the world, here it is staring you in the face.
Ah, that's beautiful. What a great way to frame this. It's such an opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited, actually. And you know what? With the people I've talked to about this, the world would not have listened as hard as it has done to the Black Lives Matter movement if it were not for COVID.
Aha.
It just simply wouldn't have happened. We were all at home. We were all stuck. And the world responded in exactly the way that it should have done in the past, but didn't. And there's a wonderful sort of meme going around on social, it's not that you've all had this wake-up call, it's just that you've been hitting snooze for the last 400 years.
So these things just sort of came together at the exact right time. And of course, also seeing the video of, George Floyd, that you can't turn away. You can't say, oh, this is not really that bad of a problem.
No, you can't.
You can't, no. It's just changed. It's just changed everything. Talk a little, Rachel, about your offerings, your beautiful podcast. Talk a little bit about your hub and where people can find you.
Oh, thank you. Well, yes, normally I'm just talking about midlife, but I am passionate about other issues as well, as you know. So Magnificent Midlife, it's an online hub and it's a global community, basically empowering and inspiring women over 40. There's all sorts of resources and courses on there. I have a members club, a monthly members club. I do one-to-one mentoring. And I have the podcast where I share stories of women, a bit like you, who are doing brilliant things in midlife and beyond and sharing their stories. And you've been on it, which was wonderful, because we like to celebrate everything that celebrates aging. Actually, for the members club, I would love to offer your listeners a discount. So with the code ZESTFUL25, you can get 25% off the monthly membership, and that will be forever, not just the first month. That'll be forever.
Wow, that's a lovely offer. So our audience can just put in ZESTFUL25 as a promo code. They go on magnificentmidlife.com. Is that
That's
right,
right.
Rachel?
Yes.
Okay. And you can see more about Rachel and her experience, her vibrance and passion. And it's hard not to feel that's contagious. Is that you get really, I love that about you. You get, there's no holding back. And I love that. So your excitement and you just very much embracing these really important subjects. Any last words to our audience, Rachel, from, what you've learned, what you've been thinking about, your awakening?
I think, a lot of women can get very stuck in midlife and beyond and sort of think, that life is over or their best life was before. And we buy into all of these negative narratives, don't we? And yet COVID can come along, Black Lives Matter can come along, and our sense of, perspective shifts overnight. Things that we thought were impossible are suddenly possible. Things that we thought were possible are no longer possible. So everything changes on a dime, and we can change, we can pivot, we can have, a marvelous, magnificent next chapter whenever we like, if we are brave enough to take those steps and obviously get the support we need to be able to do that. So I would just say, if there's something you want to do, if there's something you're passionate about, just go for it. Get the support you need, learn what you need to learn, and go for it. But, don't sit back. For heaven's sake, please don't sit back, because we as midlife and beyond women, we have so much to offer the world. And we can have influence. We can change the world, both for ourselves and for the rest of population. And I think the world needs us, quite frankly.
The world needs us. And I think about, when we get to the very end of life, what do we regret? We don't regret trying things and failing. We regret not trying.
And I think on this aspect of racism, we are bound to get it wrong as white people. I am bound to get it wrong. I know that. There'll be people listening to this probably who think, oh my goodness, she smacks of white privilege, But at least I'm trying. That's the thing. I'm trying. I'm I'm open to having conversations, and I'm open to people saying to me, well, Rachel, that wasn't really what you should have said. And I go, okay, well, I'll learn, because life's about learning, isn't it?
I love that message that we're not going to get it right. We don't know enough to get it right. But we want to know, and we want to learn. And I'm going to sort of end with that. I think that's a beautiful sentiment that some of us, I think, are afraid, well, what should I do? I don't want to come off this way or that way, but it's really important to try.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being courageous enough, to have this conversation. This is not just about, what colors look good or, what haircuts look good on older women. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I really appreciate your willingness to not know and to have a conversation that's difficult.
Well, I was really honored when you asked me to, talk about this. So thank you for allowing me to share what I've learned so far.
Well, continued good luck and congratulations on all of your good work. And I think it might be really helpful to have a follow-up, maybe in a year, to say, where are we now based on, what we've learned and what we've tried.
I'm definitely up for that.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory, super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.